So, hello and welcome to the third and final event in the Resilient Communities series. These events are a lineup of online trainings that are run in partnership between All the Elements and the YHA Outdoor Citizens, supported by Sport England. We develop these sessions based off of the things that you've told us that you need help with. And we bring in different experts from the community who are able to speak, contribute, and facilitate on different topics. This topic this evening is one that a community member came to us and they said that they've been using a little bit of knowledge within their organisation, and they found it really, really helpful and wanted to share that knowledge and create that support for other communities who might not have that expertise in-house. And we have a jam-packed session for you this evening. It is going to be a full-on 2 hours, and I'm really, really excited for it. We are joined by our wonderful host, Mary-Ann Ochota. We also have our panelists, Lise Worltey, Kelly Smith, and Nik Wilson, talking about pitching, preparing, and handling the media. And with that, Mary-Ann, I'm going to hand back over to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Frankie. Thank you all for joining us on a lovely evening, getting close to midsummer. So all the sun and all the warmth. So what we're talking about today is press training, pitching to the press, preparing for that exchange and experience with the press, and then handling the media and what comes of it, whether that's good or whether that's tricky. This whole session, we're going to pack in as much as possible within 2 hours. So it might be a bit full of content, but it's being recorded. We're going to share a kind of a pack of notes as well, so you can come back to it in your own time and sort of let it percolate through and work out which bits are relevant to the work that you're doing or the community that you're representing is doing, and then work out, kind of like distill it into action points, because it's all well and good kind of being blindsided by 2 hours of these are all the things you should be doing, but you're like, hang on a minute, this is a side hustle, I'm spinning a lot of plates. Which are the things that are going to be most relevant to me, which are going to deliver the most benefit for the amount of time and effort that I'm going to put in? And the thing about press is that it matters, because if you have press training, you have a little bit more confidence, perhaps. You're equipped to tell your story, to perhaps work out what your story is to different audiences. You can make the greatest impact, whether that's finding participants to join your community, whether it's changing or challenging attitudes in wider society, convincing funders that you're worthy of funding or they need to keep funding you. It might be simple as sharing good news and feeling like you are making the world a better place. Getting press is a really important part of supporting future funding bids as well. It's a proof, effectively, that your work is important and people are interested in it, whether that's people who are direct participants or beneficiaries, or people more broadly in society. This is something that we think is important and good, or I'm really interested to hear that this is happening in my local community. And for some people in our wider network, in the All the Elements network, the value of social proof is also convincing communities that the work that you're doing in social justice, in environmental work, in conservation work, in spending most of your time wearing messy clothes, being outdoors, getting rained on, is of great social value. And if your picture is in the Sunday Times, that sometimes helps make that case to people who might otherwise go, what is it that you do? And when are you going to get a proper job? It also, and I think we can't underestimate this, it demonstrates to your volunteers and people who are already involved with your community that their time and energy are making a difference and that their work matters. Sometimes you kind of think, and this is very true for so many of us, there is a deep intrinsic reward to the work that we're doing. We're not doing it because, you know, it's entirely self-sacrificing. We're doing it because we love it, because we're passionate about it, because we want to help people and make the world a better place. But also it does make a difference for people to feel that there's an external validation as well. It does make a big difference. Don't forget, press is not a one-off job that you get done. It's an ongoing process, which is good news, because sometimes it can feel like this huge piece of work that you think, I don't know when we're going to do that. it does take a lot of time. It does take a lot of energy to keep those balls rolling. So bear in mind that whatever you do, however small you start, however incremental it feels like the gains are, at the point you've moved beyond just your social media channels into other types of press, whether that's newspapers, local websites, podcasts, online interviews, a big TV news piece, whatever it is that you're aiming for or that comes your way, know that that is broadening the reach of people who can hear about you, celebrate you, support you, and potentially also back up the work that you're doing. I realised that I didn't actually introduce myself. I'm Mary-Ann Ochota. I'm a member of the All the Elements network, and I'm a broadcaster. My background's archaeology and anthropology, but I work a lot with outdoor organisations, and I guess often from the inside, trying to push those organisations to better consider the people who are missing from around the decision-making table, or the injustices or the lack of equity that is in organisations or particular sports or sectors or activities. So I'm really pleased to be able to kind of offer this to the community and bring together some really fantastic panellists who have proper insight, both lived experience in terms of what they've done on their own press journeys, but our first panellist is also a professional PR. So Lise Worltey, hello. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. Hello. So what we're going to cover, folks, across the whole of this session, we're going to talk about approaching the media. We're going to talk about how to make those first forays, maybe writing a press release and sharing it, how you do that, what kind of photos you might want to have available for people to use. Then we're going to be talking about being approached. So when press come to you or media come to you, what do you ask them to find out whether this is an opportunity that you want to say yes to? A little bit about saying no, because people sometimes worry, oh my goodness, if I say no, will the sky fall on my head? Will I never get called again by any journalist ever? Will we get a really bad reputation? All that stuff. Then how to prepare. So how do you brief your community? How do you prepare perhaps if you're the person going to be interviewed? How do you support someone who is kind of going, oh, well, I would talk to a journalist, but I just don't know if I can. This is how to help them be ready and say, yes, I can. And I might even enjoy the experience. And then dealing with tricky questions. A lot of people worry, what if they ask me an awful question? Or what if they ask me a question I don't know how to answer? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then on the day, particularly if it's a live recording or if it's a big occasion where, I don't know, you've got 300 people coming down for a bike and swim race and you've got news crew turning up or a journalist from the local newspaper turning up, how are you going to handle that? What are they going to ask you? What's it going to be like? And then after the day, partly making the most of it, partly dealing with potentially harmful fallout. So dodgy messages, comments, things getting shared or taken out of context. And then how to prepare for next time. And then we're going to have some time, hopefully, to deal with questions. We're going to have all our panelists online and you can ask your questions. So Lise, you're a professional PR, you're a writer, a speaker, a founder of Women with Altitude. It's a project dedicated to empowering people through the stories of forgotten women adventurers. Now, Lise's project has received widespread media attention. She's featured in outlets like The Guardian, The Financial Times, The Telegraph, and you've also starred in Channel 4's survival series Alone. She survived 34 years, days in a beautiful but challenging environment. And on Saturday, she's going to attempt to climb Mont Blanc in a bonnet. But helpfully for all of us tonight, she's also spent the last 12 years working as a professional PR. So we get the wealth of that media and PR experience. So welcome, Lise.
Thank you. Lovely intro.
Tell us, what does it take to get press? You know, someone's sitting, listening to this call and they're kind of going, okay, well, I've got to run this like small community outfit. We do really cool stuff with local young people or someone from particular identity groups. How do we get our story in the local newspaper or the local radio or, I don't know, on The Guardian?
Yeah, I think it can be really daunting at first, actually. I used to be terrified to speak to journalists, and that's really normal. But actually, what I've learned over the years is like journalists really want to hear from you. Like their job is to get stories. And if you can kind of help them with that and do it for them, then they'll love you forever. And they're always really lovely. So that would kind of be my first top tip is don't be afraid to reach out to people. And I guess you guys all run incredible communities. So I would start the main thing is kind of what's your story, what's a unique thing that you're doing that you really believe in, that you can talk confidently about. What are your strengths? Like, what is it that you're doing? And then start with that and start kind of thinking, well, how can I turn this into a press story? So I thought what I'd do is go through this. So this is a press release. This is probably the most successful press release I've ever sent. So I thought it would be a good one to start with, and then I'll slowly go through kind of all the the angles and different ways that you put it together and decide what to put in it. So this one was a work one I put together. It was actually about my friend Fatima. So I knew it was a good story because she was kind of like so I worked in adventure travel at the time, and female guides in adventure travel were so rare, like few and far between. But Fatima was a tour guide in Afghanistan, and I thought, oh my gosh, like this is an amazing story. Like she thinks she's the only one. So that was kind of how we were like, well, let's try and make this into a story and share it with the media. So I'll go through the press release bit by bit, and I think we can send you like an example press release afterwards. So don't worry about remembering how it looks and stuff. But the first thing you want is quite a catchy title, because journalists get hundreds and hundreds. I think I was talking to the woman from The Guardian once. She said she gets 600 emails a day, just different press releases. So you need yours. So she's obviously like a big journalist, but they'll get constant press releases. So you really want yours to stand out. So you can just, yeah, I think I don't try not to use ChatGPT or anything, but sometimes it does really help if you've got a title and you're not quite sure, how to mix it up or make it better. You can use it, but I would say don't use it for writing the main bit of the press release because the journalists know they'll catch on to it straight away. So just use it for inspiration, so that can help.
What kind of prompt would you put into ChatGPT if you're, I don't know, running a series of pond dipping and butterfly ID workshops for people over the summer, people who might not be confident getting outdoors? Like, what are you putting in ChatGPT?
I'd write a title myself and then I'd put in, can you give me a better title for an article in The Independent that follows these lines? Sometimes it churns out rubbish, but it might give you a few words and ideas, and it can help. And it will give you a few ideas. So it is a tool you can use. Just be careful not to ask it to write your whole press release because they'll catch on to that.
And I guess the crucial bit there is that you said which publication you're aiming that
Yeah.
press release to go to. So if you were sending it to the Rochester Record, it's going to be a different kind of thing to if you're
Yeah.
sending it to the, I don't know, like the Daily Mirror.
Yeah, 100%. And then thing is sometimes you'll have just like your list of journalists. So you'll only have one title. So then you can go more sort of I try and be quite like try and sum up what the whole thing is about in that one title, which is sometimes really difficult, but just trying to get all the information across. So this one went to a load of journalists who work in adventure travel. So I just think Meet Afghanistan's first female tour guide, that's going to grab their attention. But yeah, just anything like that is good. And then what you want straight away, and what I would say as well is don't always, when you're sending a press release, don't always do it as an attachment. Put it in the body of the email. It's just a good little tip. So you can say, hi to the journalist, I'm whoever from whatever, and I thought you might like this story, and then just paste it below, because sometimes their emails reject messages that have big attachments. So yeah, just put it in there. And that means that you need a really strong like first paragraph. So literally just like 2 sentences that try and sum up everything you're trying to say, which again is really difficult, but you can just take your time over it. So yeah, you want a really punchy first paragraph so it just gets their attention. They're like, oh wow, this is cool, I'm going to read on. Because quite often they'll just gloss over, they'll look at lots of ones they get sent, but they'll just kind of gloss over lots of them. So you really want to like grab them and make them look at the story. This one I use an example because the next tip I would give is to try, once you've found your story, try and work it around a hook. So lots of press, they'll write about things kind of International Women's Day, or these are just ones off the top of my head, but World Mountain Day or the UN Climate Summit, like these things are happening and there'll be more press around things that relate to that at the time. So maybe make a list of all the days that are kind of important to you and your community and what you do, and then try and hook on a story to that. So if it's like people are going pond dipping and catching butterflies, there's a World Butterfly Day, so you could kind of, catch it onto that story. So this one I linked to International Women's Day. And then the other tip with that is to send it 2 or 3 weeks before the event, because they have all their press lined up. They'll be writing things months in advance sometimes. So if it's too late and too close to that hook and that day, then they'll have already got things that they're writing about. So yeah, do 2 or 3 weeks in advance is quite a good time.
And for local newspaper or local radio, I'm assuming the turnaround is a little bit shorter. So if you're
Yeah, I
like,
think
hang
so.
on a minute,
Yeah.
we've still got places for this course that we're doing on Saturday, you could send something
Yeah,
on the Tuesday or the
100%.
Wednesday,
Yeah.
couldn't you?
Yeah, so I think generally when you're sending, you don't always have to have a hook or things like that. If you've got a good bit of news that's there in that time, just send it out. But sometimes it's helpful. But yeah, the sort of radio and local things, definitely.
Okay, great.
So yeah, don't get hooked up on the hook. Like you don't have to have one. It's just good. It's just another way that they might write about it.
Well, I'm going to flick on to the next
Yes.
slide, because we've got loads of your press. And the thing that really struck me when I was looking at all these screen grabs was how many different angles
Mm,
you've hooked stories onto. So sometimes it's about mental health, sometimes it's about like the amazing undertaking of the incredible video showing someone trekking through the Himalayas with no modern technology. The Telegraph one is about wearing like 1920s underwear, so it's kind
mm.
of a bit quirky. Or it might be a kind of adventure travel piece. So there's lots of different ways of looking. Like, it could be adventure travel, it could be about women's rights, it could be about like gender equity, it could be about mental health. I was like, gosh, this
I
is
think I'm quite lucky in
good,
my
isn't she?
project in that it's got lots of different angles. So it can be about the clothing, and then I kind of link that to how outdoor clothing today is still sometimes an issue for women. It's got lots of ways that I can link it. So then there's the women missing from history that sort of relates to lots of different things. And actually, yeah, because it's only one story, it's just my project and it's been written about a lot. The journalists themselves will look for different angles. If they like the story, they'll be like, oh, it hasn't been done from this angle or this. So if there's something new you're doing, that's a good thing to go out with as well. But yeah, it's just picking out the different angles. And actually, I would say that quite often it is the journalists who can kind of tailor it and to suit their publication as well, because all the publications have different in-house style, different things their readers want to read. So they'll know and they can kind of help guide you. If they like the idea, they'll say, oh, maybe we could write about this or this. So if they want the story, they will kind of help you to, yeah, kind of tailor it to them, which is great. It's really good help. Um, yeah. So then I'd also say you can kind of look for trends as well. Like if you're, so with that Fatima example, I noticed that lots of companies were kind of starting to use more women guides to try and get, empower more women in the travel industry. So I kind of used examples from other travel brands, which isn't something that you'd normally do as like a branded press release, but actually because you're giving the journalists this information, you're backing yourself up, saying we're not the only ones with this. And trends, they love a trend, like they love to write about that. And stats as well, I'd say, is a really key thing. So again, for my project, I talk a lot about my mental health and my journey with anxiety. So I'll go to like mind.org or a charity like that who does a lot of research in that area. They have really good stats that are reliable. So yeah, if you have an idea or there's something that you want to get out there, try and find some stats from some charities and things to back it up, because they love a good stat, those journalists.
Okay, great. So you've got ChatGPT to help you with a few ideas for headlines. You've got that kind of strong opening couple of lines that really sum up what we're talking about here. A bit more information, some solid and reliable stats.
Yeah.
You press send on the email, and then what happens?
So I think it's worth saying as well, research your journalists. So find ones, you can Google what you're all about or journalists that write about similar things. It's quite easy to guess their emails sometimes. So yeah, just put yourself together a little list of the ones that have written similar things, and you can say to them, "Oh, hi, Mary-Ann, I just saw that you wrote a piece about walking in the outdoors in your slippers," or whatever it would be. I think you might be interested in this. So really key journalists like that you think will really like the story, just message them individually with a little note, and your press release. Yeah, and then if no one replies, I'd say follow up once, because quite often they like that. They'll say, "Oh, thanks for reminding me. I did like that one, but all the rest came in." But I wouldn't do it more than twice, because you'll just end up annoying them. So yeah, maybe two follow-ups, but then I would just leave it, because quite often if they wanted the story, they would have got back to you. And don't be upset or offended. I used to get upset when I had this story that I thought would be really great for a certain journalist. Bit like when you try and get funding for things, and you feel really sort of let down and don't understand why they didn't reply, but they're just busy, and quite often, they're writing a million stories at once, and if their editor doesn't want the story, then so yeah, don't be upset if they don't reply to a story that you think is amazing.
Yeah, yeah, I will absolutely second that. As someone who's been in freelance broadcasting for, oh my goodness, like almost 20 years now, it does require a thick skin, because you have to put yourself out there. Like, this is your passion project, this is
Yeah.
you, that it feels like they're saying no to you, but it's sometimes useful to just repeat in your head or out loud at your emails, "It's them, not me, it's them, not me, it's them, not me," until you start to believe it. That's genuinely a pro tip there. Nadia says, from Event Queens, would you be sending the story to multiple journalists at once, or do you wait until you hear back from one?
Oh no, send it to all of them.
Send
Yeah.
it to all of them. Do you
Yeah.
need different angles for everyone? Will they get annoyed if they're like, "Hang on a minute, the Times has just published this story"?
It's going to that where I work as well, you'll write one press release, you'll send it to a whole list. If and they won't expect it to be exclusive to them unless you've gone out to them specially before, said, "I've got this really great story that's perfect for the Times. I'm happy to give it to you exclusively if it's something you want to cover." But otherwise, I would just go out with blanket, put them all in one, because again, it's your time. Often, like me, it's a passion project. You can't sort of do things individually, and you want to get as much coverage as possible. And then if they do come back to you, you can just say to them, "Oh, just so you know, the Telegraph were interested in this," or whoever, and usually they're fine with it. But yeah, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. Just get it out to as many as possible, I'd say.
When I've had more than one like news outlet come back, both sort of expressing interest, don't lie to them. That's the one thing you don't want to do, because they will find out and then they will never speak to you again, because they'll have been professionally embarrassed within their own team, or a story will get pulled at the last minute, and then it's terrible for them. So don't put them in that position. But what you can do is say, well, the angle that the Telegraph are covering is this around World Mental Health Day.
Yeah.
But what we could do, you and I, make yourselves a team. What we could do is focus on underrepresentation of people of colour in this space, or whatever it is that's relevant to your issue. So help them think of a different way that they can cover it and feel like they've got some clear space between the way another publication is covering the story.
Yeah, definitely. And 100%, just be open and honest, and
don't lie.
Don't lie to them.
They'll find you. All right, brilliant. So what this is your this is a press release that you literally issued
Yeah, that went out
yesterday.
yesterday. So this
Woohoo!
is, I just put this in because I think this is looks more like what a press release should look like. And it can be super simple and it just the information, they just want the information. So yeah, just try and keep it concise, put exactly what it is. But yeah, I think we can probably send this round after as well. So if anyone wants it. And I've also got press releases I've sent on my website. So you can just go on there and basically copy that outline and just change it for your own. But yeah, you always need to put a date on just so they know when it's being sent. And then obviously your contact details at the bottom.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Great. So to summarize, my friends, press releases, you want a catchy headline, a subheading if you need it. Imagine if you're looking at a newspaper, and this is true for a radio interview, it's true for a newspaper article. It's slightly different for if you're trying to pitch a magazine feature, because then you kind of just want one paragraph of like, this is the thing that I would write about. But when you're thinking about press, someone else is telling your story for you effectively. You're kind of giving them a heads up to invite them to start thinking about how they want to cover the story. Then you want that strong start. What is the story here? What is the story that their reader or their listener or their viewer would kind of actually be engaged with? And then the idea that Lise was talking about, a hook. A hook is always really useful. The kind of big question in TV is like, why now? Why would we make a news piece about a walking group now, given that you go walking every week of the year and you've been running since 2021? Why now? So help them do that work, because they sometimes need to pitch it internally as well. So you're not just convincing them, you're giving them the ammunition to be able to pitch it internally for their senior person, their boss, their editor, whoever, to go, yeah, that sounds good, off you go. We'll
That's where
publish that
your trends and your stats come in. So you could be like, this is why now, because this is growing, or there's more people coming into this space, more people are caring. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Then a little bit more information, backing yourself, backing the story that you're telling, the angle that you're promoting. So that's where your stats and your evidence comes in. Keep it factual. Dial back on the superlatives. The most amazing, the first, I mean, if you're the first and only female tour guide in Afghanistan, then fine, go strong on that. If you're the first person to climb Mont Blanc in a bonnet, then fine. Well, since 1860, whenever, 38, 68.
1838.
There you go. But otherwise, kind of keep it factual. Let them do the bragging for you rather than you do the brag. You're not selling it, you're sharing factual information. And then just beware of jargon. So if you're talking about, I don't know, working in the Cotswold National Landscape, helping restore footpaths, someone might not know what the Cotswold National Landscape is. So you can offer a line that explains that it's the thing that used to be called an area of outstanding natural beauty, or it's the bit that's just next to you know, the particular area that you're working in is near to this perhaps well-known town. And then if you want to, you can, I've certainly for local press as well, where sometimes it's literally one person who copy and paste a press release, runs it through AI and then prints it on their website, publishes it on their website. You can offer a quote. Attribute it to an actual real person, like, and don't make it up, make it a real quote from a real person. So participants, volunteers, people who funded you, local businesses who are supporting you. This is really fantastic. We can really see the difference that blah, blah, and blah, blah are making. My friends and I've met loads of new friends doing this activity. Whatever it is that people want to say, let that be where people really big up what you're doing in those quotes, because they're more attributable. So they're more believable. And then you can have like a paragraph about you, about the organisation. That's sometimes known as a boilerplate. It's the thing that you might have already on your website about us, or it might be the biog that you have on your socials. It can be pretty simple. It can be straightforward. It should definitely be in your voice. You don't need to kind of try and work out how to do it kind of properly and in a prim way, like own your own voice, be authentic. Then if there's links to photos or videos that they can use, don't attach them to the email, because the size will get too big. They'll kind of get annoyed. If they want the photos, they'll click on the link or email you to ask for them. You did see, though, on Lise's press release that she kind of embedded a thumbnail, so a really small file, but an idea of how amazing the photographs might be. Visuals are really good. Particularly for local news, there's a difference. Like, you might actually get a whole page if you've got photos to add to it. And then a contact. Please make sure that someone actually is going to reply if someone follows up. So don't put it to the hello@ email that people check once a fortnight. If it's that, then, and you're not going to be on top of the email, maybe it's not the right time to send a press release. We know that everybody's got a lot of plates to spin, so there are going to be times where you can't do press, it's too much. You can just deal with reactive stuff, but if you're sending out a press release, be prepared for someone to come back to you and then make the most of it, because the only thing that would be more annoying than someone not replying to your press release at all is someone replying to your press release, but then you lose that opportunity because you didn't see the email quick enough or you didn't answer your phone. So find someone in your organisation who will answer the call or call back straight away, or who will be able to pick up that email and respond, like know what to do with it, or know who to forward it on to so that it can be dealt with speedy. So remember, tailor the info to the publication. Short sentences, simple words, does not need to be a work of Dickens. Bring your own flavour. You don't need to write in someone else's voice. And then this is the thing, if you don't spend lots of time writing, and it doesn't feel like this is an easy thing for you to do, that's okay. Loads of people find it really hard to kind of boil down, what is this about? And like, why does anyone else care? Get a friend who has the kind of capacity to be to give you some feedback, to check that it makes sense. And they're like, well, hang on a minute, this is the most relevant thing, is actually about I don't know, climate change, or working with local schools, or clearing the river of plastic pollution, or whatever it is that you're doing, or we're going to undertake our 100th hike next month. Then focus it around that, so they can kind of help you workshop, like, what actually are our ideas, what are our stories, what are the different angles and hooks that we can focus on.
That's a great point too, actually, because I do all my stuff on my own on top of a job, and I'm so in it. And I'm sure we're all so in our things that you write things and you forget that the people that are reading it actually don't know anything about what you're writing about. So it's always good to get a check, because sometimes you're so in your own head that you miss things and just think, oh, everyone knows that. But actually,
Yeah, exactly. So and you can kind of be quite creative, I think, about, like, if you're doing a hike and litter pick along your local canal, then actually work out, is this the oldest canal in Britain, or is it the longest canal, or is it one of the busiest stretches? Like, all those kind of those hooks, that each one of those things could be a hook. Have you welcomed your 100th volunteer through the door? Or it could be a hook around something that's happening within your own charity, particularly for local news, like a local business is supporting you to do a thing. The local business is going to love it, you're going to love it, and the local newspaper is going to love it too. And that can generate loads of, like, local goodwill. So you might get small amounts of sponsorship or corporate support. You might get in-kind support. So things like a local website company might offer to refresh your website, or you might get some free photos, or they might do printing for your next set of leaflets, or whatever it is. So that can be super useful. Don't underestimate the power of your local, Hatfield Times or what have you.
yeah, get a
That
lot
is
of
often,
readers, the local papers. So
yeah,
yeah,
they do,
definitely
yeah,
worth
and they're
going
active
on
and
to.
busy, yeah, and you might be surprised at how many. It's not kind of like the Sunday Times front cover or bust. Actually, the Hatfield Times might deliver way more bang for your buck. A question from Francesca. What is it if how do you do it if you're offering a response to a current news story? For example, like responding with a youth voice or perspective. What's the best way to do that? do you
Yeah,
think?
that's great. So that's a big part of like PR is jumping on the news stories, what's happening now. So again, it's finding who, I guess, if you want to put someone forward to speak, it's having a profile on them sort of ready to go. And again, having that list of journalists ready to go. So you can quite easily find, say, like the producer of the Sky News program that you think it would be good on, just kind of, or that you relate to, just have them all ready to go. And then when there's a story like that, you can just send, doesn't even need to be a press release or anything like that, just an email to this person saying, we have so and so, they're an expert in this area, let me know if you need them for comment. They're great with the media, something like that. And that can just do, you don't have to do a whole press release because it has to be quite quick. So yeah, you can just send the info over, and why they'd be good to comment, and maybe
Yeah,
examples
that's
or
a great line. Let me know if you need them for comment, because you don't need to kind of say, oh, well, they'd be really good because blah, blah, blah. I think that kind of, yeah.
yeah.
And then
So
like
what
a
can
little
we
line
do
of
for you?
bio.
How can we help? Like,
Yeah,
this person's an expert. Would you like to use
yeah,
them potentially for your
yeah,
story?
exactly. Alice says, what's your take on navigating situations where there's initial interest from editors or outlets, news outlets, particularly around underrepresented voices, but then the follow through doesn't happen or it feels tokenistic? How do you deal with being ghosted by the press, and how do you protect the integrity of your story while still getting it out there? I'll take the first bit. You will get ghosted loads. It's like online dating. There's a lot of hits there's a lot of misses to any hit. Don't take it personally. How do you protect the integrity of your story? Actually, we've got a recorded interview with Steph Wetherell from Everybody Outdoors coming up, and she talks a little bit about that as well. But Lise, do you have a kind of take on that?
I think like you shouldn't be afraid to go back and say, actually, no, this isn't what it was about. Or if they're asking, sometimes I find journalists push in a certain way because they want the story to take a certain turn, or they want to cover it in a certain way. And I think if you're feeling uncomfortable about that and that's not what you originally wanted to get out there, you can say it to them. I mean, once it's gone out, they're probably free to kind of write and do what they want, but it's just trying to manage that obviously in a nice way. But yeah, don't be afraid to kind of go back and say that that wasn't kind of what it was about. Yeah, I think just kind of stick to your guns. But yeah, I mean, it can happen. I've not had it happen too much. I generally think that they'll be interested because they want to cover the story because it's something they're interested in, and they'll be looking to support you just because of the nature of your work. But yeah, I think don't be afraid to kind of speak out, and yeah, and correct them, I suppose, in
I
a
think,
polite way, obviously.
yeah, I think in terms of the tokenistic point, sometimes, again, don't take it personally necessarily, because they might be dealing with a lot of other pressures from within their publication. The other thing that journalists often do is they get edited internally. So
Yeah.
what the journalist who spoke to you in all good faith and with absolute honest intentions wrote something, wrote a headline, submitted it, and then someone else sub-edited it. So they changed the headline to something much more provocative, perhaps much more clickbaity. Someone else goes through that copy, and that's kind of the deal they make working as a staffer, or for me as a freelancer. Once I've submitted, I have no control over what that then gets published. And I've never yet been really badly burned and gone, oh my goodness, they've made that a kind of reactionary, clickbait, divisive thing. But they could have. They could have. I've been the subject of press that has been that way, but I've never written it and kind of felt like I've had to own this terrible thing that's happened that I didn't mean at all. But it does happen. So sometimes don't immediately fly off the handle with journalists, because they might be as distraught about it as you are, and have similarly little power in the situation.
And also, there's certain publications that do that more than others.
Yeah, yeah,
The Sun, people like that. So if you have a story that is maybe something you think that might happen with, maybe just remove the Sun journalists from your list, or people
yeah,
like that that you think might do something like that with it.
yeah. the experience of being on GB News talking about trans rights is going to be a totally different kettle of fish to talking on BBC World Service. So kind of know your outlet and know whether that is something you want to get involved with. There is no pressure. You can always say no. You say, actually, I've changed my mind. Thanks very much. If you ever want to cover this story in a different way, get in touch. But for now, I'm out. You're allowed to do that too. You are in control. But once it's out in the world, then you kind of have to accept that to some extent people will do what people are going to do. Lovely, Lise. Thank you. Okay, so then be contactable and don't spam them. Lise has already said that. Follow up once and then don't be weird. Don't be that person kind of going, hi, still me. Because then the chances of you getting a follow up when the next bit of news comes up is a bit lower because they might remember that you were the person who spammed them. So remember, if nothing happens this time, it might not be that it was a waste of time. It might just have like dropped an extra drop of awareness, of name recognition, so that it might pay off the next time you send a press release. So if you didn't get anything the first time you sent it, don't let that put you off you sending a press release for another occasion with a different hook and a different story. That's kind of just part of, it's the name of the game, right? Lise, do you want to talk about photos or should I talk about photos? You've got lovely photos. They're so jazzy.
Yeah, I mean, if you have great photos, they'll always ask you, do you own these or have you got the photographer's permission? So just make sure that you do. And always try and credit the photographer as well, even if they've given you the permission. I always say to the outlets, oh, please, can you credit this person for taking it? But yeah, I guess photos that go along with what you're trying to say and what you're trying to get across and that represent you and what you do.
Yeah. I always put the name of the photographer in the title of the file so that it can't get lost, because otherwise a picture file will get saved in one place and the email that you said the credit belongs to this photographer might not stay together. Whereas if it's in the file name, then chances are you can also put it in the watermark information for the file as well.
And then I'd say a good thing,
go ahead.
A good thing to do is to put them all in like a Google folder, make it accessible, and then just put a link to the photos like in the press release so that if they want to publish something straight away, they don't then have to come back to you and say, oh, have you got any photos? And then you're like, oh yeah, we transfer you some. So yeah, try and just make it easy, just easy as possible for them. Just put the link in.
Perfect. Yeah, grease those wheels. So if you're thinking about, okay, well, we want to get some press. This year is going to be a busy year for us, but we've kind of got random photos. We've got stuff that we use on socials, but maybe not stuff that would work in a newspaper. Think about getting some photos in advance. And you might want specific shots of a particular activity or an event or a group of people. I don't know, your class of 25 who've graduated from the whatever it is that you're doing. But you might also want generic shots that are going to work, maybe people paddling or a stack of kayaks or pond dipping nets or whatever your thing is. If you've got a volunteer taking shots rather than inviting or paying for a photographer to come and get shots, sit down and think about the wish list of shots that you might want together so that you're not throwing them in at the deep end when everybody's turning up, there's loads of stuff going on and they're kind of going, okay, I need to get a bunch of shots. You say, actually, we need some stuff that is on the river, some preparation stuff. We'd like some group shots of everyone looking at the camera, but also some shots of people doing the things that they're doing, whatever that is, IDing mushrooms, staring at the sky, chilling out under a tree, whatever it is, but they're doing something rather than just like smiling at the camera. Smiling at the camera is totally good, and holding a sign, anything that kind of brands your outfit, if you have clothes and stuff or signs or flags, then by all means get those in the shots as well. Always remember to let people know that you're going to be taking photos and that they can absolutely opt out. It is not mandatory for people to be in photos. I'm sure you all know this. And that if they see you taking photos nearby, for them to just remind you and just say, sorry, not me. But if they want to be in the photo but remain anonymous, so they're not identifiable, then you can get creative. So I picked out 3 different photos here. This one on the left, this one on the left is from Kelly Smith's Black Tribe. I don't know if the person in the middle did or didn't want to be recognisable, but because they're turned to the back, it could be anybody, but they're also still involved in the shot, and they're also advertising the name of the Black Tribe. The shot in the centre is Veronica Melkonian, who was photographing for All the Elements, the summit. So broad, generic shots, but that could be anybody, but it also gives a sense of the adventure, of who's involved. And then the one on the right is a photograph that I saw in the Times magazine recently. It was a photographer, Jude Edgington. Now, the people in that shot, the little girl on the left-hand side with the camera in front of her face, she's adopted. And so her parent, her mum in the middle, is protecting her identity. But she's not excluded from the family shot. She's just creatively hidden. Her identity is hidden. So you can be really creative around that. You could have people holding up compasses, ordnance survey maps, the pond dipping, turning around. You can have backlighting so that their faces aren't visible, but they're like forming a shape. Be really creative, be fun. Like I say, get your flavour in there. It doesn't need to be dull. And if you've got a photographer coming down, this used to be the thing that happened all the time. If you were like doing a local press thing, then they would send a photographer down. But nowadays, budgets are tight. There aren't always photographers. They're like, have you got any pictures? No. Okay, well, we won't run your story. Or yes, you do. Sometimes they do, though, send a photographer. That photographer may have no idea who you are or why they've turned up, in which case you're in charge. Tell them what is and isn't okay. Who is or isn't okay to be photographed, or what things that you think would work. They'll have their own ideas. They'll probably have their own kind of shot list immediately in their head if they've done it a lot. But you can also kind of influence that and try as much as possible to kind of go, okay, like we're working on this together, right? Yeah, okay. Or if you feel like you trust them, you have a quick chat with them, and then you can let them get on with it. And that's one thing off your to-do list. You will sometimes be able to use those photos, but often not. They'll say, actually, the copyright belongs to either me or the publication. But sometimes photographers, and this has happened for me in organisations I've been working with previously, they'll take a bunch of photos for the publication, and then they'll take a couple of extra pictures that they will send to you. And they're like, you can use those. Best of luck. I know you're not going to profit from them particularly, but if you do use them, just credit me. Off you go, which is very good of them because they've generally got incredibly expensive cameras and they know how to use them, which is always nice. Amazing. And then one final thing, folks, just be mindful if you're recording or taking photos of children or people who might be vulnerable in some way, who can't offer fully informed consent, so they actually understand what they're saying yes to. That their photo might end up in a newspaper, online, on social media, in outlets that they haven't got control over, then you shouldn't be taking their pictures or using those pictures. So just that is your responsibility. Make sure, in law, that's your responsibility. So make sure that you are safeguarding people in that way. Don't take chances. And if there's any chance that you might be using pictures for marketing, then best practice is to get written permission, which I know feels like a lot of faff and paperwork for paperwork's sake. But what you don't want is that you've actually got this amazing bank of images that you've gathered over the past few months, and then you realise that actually you can't use them because you can't prove that you have permission to use them. So all the elements have templates for that, and they can share those kinds of resources with anyone in the network. Amazing. Thank you, Lise.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to quickly talk about being approached by the press, and then we're going to hear from Steph. Okay, so being approached by the press. So we've talked about you approaching the press with press releases and stuff like that. Oh, and also to say, if you've got questions, put them in the chat, and what we'll do is we'll gather them up at the next bit and do some more answering. So if someone phones you up or drops you an email, the first thing you can ask them is like, who are you and what's your role there? So are they a super junior researcher, or are they're doing work experience? Are they the editor-in-chief? Find out how senior they are, because that sometimes helps you understand whether this is a kind of speculative, they're filling Tuesday afternoon, they've given the work experience kid something to do, or whether this is something that has real traction behind it and might lead to something. That's not to say that the work experience kid isn't going to run a story. They might be brilliant as well. What's the angle of the story? So if someone's approaching you, it might be something that you want to support, or it might be something that is something that you feel is not something you want to get involved with, that might have like a really divisive angle, in which case you can go, that's not for us, thanks. Explain what you do. Don't assume that you'd hope that they found you on socials or they found your website and they've done a bit of reading, but maybe they haven't. Maybe they've been a bit speculative. Don't assume if they sound like they know. You can always tell them. Use that boilerplate, the about us. This is what we do. This is who we represent. This is why our work is important. And then see if there's a recognition for them to go, okay, that's a good fit. If they're saying, oh, we'd love to interview you, find out what is it that it's for. Is it going to be a 3,000 word feature? Is it going to be a kind of 2-line quote in a news piece? If it's a TV thing, is it going to be a 45-minute documentary, or is it going to be a tiny 30-second thing for the 6 o'clock news? Whatever it is, kind of get an idea of what it is that you're being asked to be involved with, and it gives you a sense of whether it's worth it, although you can never be sure which things are going to deliver and which ones aren't. And then if you're being asked to do something, you can ask, is there a fee? They won't offer you one generally unless you ask. And sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. If there is no fee for being a contributor, there is sometimes what is called a disturbance fee, which is like a small amount of money to compensate you for example, having to leave work early to get to a place to be interviewed, or to arrange a taxi to get to Beachy Head to be able to run down the beach for the TV cameras to like film you guys training on the beach, whatever it is. If there's no disturbance fee, you can ask, are they going to cover expenses? So that could be things like accommodation, it could be travel expenses. They should certainly cover travel expenses at bare minimum. And whatever you're offered on the phone, if it is a phone call, confirm it in an email so that you actually have something to follow up with. Because otherwise they'll be like, yeah, not everyone's like this, but some people will be like, yes, don't worry, we'll cover all that. And then at the point you send them an invoice and receipts, it goes dead and ghosty. So get it in an email. And then the final point that is really, really crucial is it is okay to say no. If I'm not going to name a particular publication or TV channel, but so I'm inviting you all now to think of which one it might be that you're like, actually, that's making me suck my teeth. Then if that is your instinct and you don't necessarily want your outfit, your work to be associated in that outlet, given that we have a very polarized and divisive media at the moment, say no. That is totally legit. Not all press is good press. You can just say, that's not something I want to get involved with. And you don't need to explain why. No is a complete sentence. Do it politely, because it is an actual human at the end of the phone, or on the other end of the emails, but you don't need to kind of get into a whole essay explaining why you think they're not anti-racist. Just don't get into it, just say no. So then the next things, if you are kind of like thinking, actually, maybe we do want to say yes, find out more information. So when, where, and who is coming, as in, is it going to be a journalist and a camera operator or a photographer? Is it just sending a photographer and you want us to kind of answer some questions on email? If some of your participants or volunteers have additional needs or considerations, they want to have you hike to the top of Mam Tor, but actually it's something that you wouldn't necessarily do. You wouldn't go all the way up, or you would want people to be able to take lots of breaks, or actually if it's raining, you'd do something else, then give them a heads up so they know. Anything they might need to know. So if you do bike training in the local park, but at 7 p.m, the cheerleaders also do their training in the background, then they probably need to want to know about that so they can time it accordingly. And then you can ask as well, when is this thing going to be published, or when it's going to TX, which means transmission. So as in like, when is it going to be on TV? because that feeds into you preparing for what happens afterwards. So if it's something that's going to happen on Thursday night, but you know that you and your whole team for your organisation are all going to be away on a 5-day residential, then maybe that's not a time where it's going to work out for you, because you won't be able to deal with the impacts, positive or negative, of the press. So kind of sometimes they don't know. Sometimes they're like, I'm going to file it and it might be published in September or it might be published tomorrow. I don't know. Then maybe take the chance. But they sometimes do know, and that's useful information for you to have to plan ahead. And then with details like online, down the line, and live. So online, they might want to Skype you. They might want to talk to you on an actual phone, mobile phone. Or it might be live interview, a kind of a live film interview or a live radio interview. Often they'll get you to kind of call up 5 minutes before you then kind of get patched through to the person in the studio. Double check who is the person you're going to be talking to live. It gives you a sense of who they are and their name, which is always quite useful. Check that they know your name, because sometimes the pieces of paper that go from a producer to the person who's going to then be talking live on radio or on the TV might not always get through. They might absolutely fluff your name. So volunteer. My name is blah, blah, blah. I'm from X, Y, and Z organisation. You pronounce my name. I say Ochota. It's got a silent C. And then I wait for them to repeat it back to me. Ochota. And you go, yeah, you got it. And they go, great, I'll tell the presenter. So then you don't have that super embarrassing thing for them and for you where they just massively fudge your name. And then you're like, either I have to roll with it or I have to correct them on air, neither of which feels good. Let them get it right and give them the best chance of getting it right in the first place. And then tell them what your role is. So I'm the founder, I'm one of the volunteer coordinators, I run hikes in Sussex, whatever it is. Okay, so because of the time, I'm really sorry, Steph, I'm going to dump you. I'm going to move on because I want to talk to, I'm not going to dump you. We can get this on the catch up, can't we, Frankie? Do you think? Yes, we can. Because I recorded an interview with Steph Wetherell. She's the founder and coordinator of Everybody Outdoors, who, as it says here, fight for clothing, gear and representation for plus size bodies in the outdoor movement. She has lots of thoughts because she's had both good press and bad press. What we'll do is we'll share this on all the Elements socials afterwards, so you can kind of watch it on catch up. But what we're going to do, because we've got Kelly and Nik on the call with us, we're going to swiftly shift on. Okay, so Kelly, let's go over to you. Hi.
Hello there.
How are you doing?
I'm very, very well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, thank you. I'm going to skip through these bits and then we're going to come back to them. So Kelly, okay, there we go. We're going to come back to that. Kelly, tell us who you are and what kind of experiences have you had with press?
So, hi, my name is Kelly Smith. I am the founder of an organisation called the Black Tribe. We are the first triathlon club in the UK for people of colour. We're the first triathlon event in the UK for people of colour. And we specialise in entry-level participation into multidisciplinary activity. In short, for, the primary school English, it's just taking part. It's just trying something different. Our slogan is try a thing, which is a colloquialism for just try, just give it a go, try something new, try something different, maybe do something you've never done before with people that are similar to you. So that takes away a bit of the anxiety. Some of the press that we have done in the past, we've been featured in a few different newspaper articles. We've worked in lots of different publications, small scale publications. We've also been on both local and national and international news. So that is us.
That's very cool. I think let's watch this clip. It's called a package, when a news outlet puts together a bit of interview, a bit of archive, perhaps a bit of the voiceover of the journalist, the broadcast journalist. So let's watch this package that BBC Sportsday did with Kelly and the Black Tribe, and then we can talk about what the experience was like. Kelly, let's do it. Okay.
Finally tonight, Britain's Eva Kara has booked a place in tomorrow's final of the women's 50-metre
Oh, Mary-Ann, it's quite quiet. I don't know if your volume is turned down.
In the year, she became the first black woman to represent Great Britain in the pool at an Olympic Games.
Is that better?
Comes at a time
No.
when people, particularly from minority communities, are swimming.
Oh, it's very loud in my ears. What am I doing wrong? Oh no. Was it loud? Was it quiet before?
It's all right before.
It was all right before. Let me headphones out, see if that helps. Okay, hang on. Let's try this.
Less. Dan Ogden-Shapin has been to meet a triathlon group that's trying to change that. Great British goal of these games goes to Seed. Since triathlon became an Olympic sport in 2000, no country has won more gold medals than Great Britain. But despite Olympic success, most notably for Alex Yee, swim, bike, run struggles for diversity. According to British Triathlon, just 2.3% of its members are from ethnically diverse backgrounds. Founded in 2022, the Black Tribe is seeking to buck that trend.
We are an entry-level participation triathlon club. We are a CIC made for Black and people of colour to have a space to try new things, swimming, cycling, running, hiking. It's all about that gateway into triathlon, a multidisciplinary sport.
Core element of its triathlon program are swim sessions designed to encourage participation, challenge stereotypes, and overcome aquatic anxiety.
Half the pool we have for beginners. So that's for people that might have aquaphobia, people that might be terrified of just even coming into leisure centres sometimes. And that is dedicated to them. The other half of the pool are for, sometimes age-old triathletes that have been doing it for years, really want to hone in their technique and skill, are trying to get the next personal best or increase their stamina, or maybe they've got a little bit of technical issues that they want to sort of line up.
The benefits of swimming are undeniable, combining water safety with physical and mental well-being.
It's amazing. I'm so proud of myself. I'm so proud of the team and everyone who started with me as well, because we've come a long way. I have achieved more than I ever thought I would. And in leaps and bounds as well, which shocks me. And how I came along and I thought, I'll try it out. I love their ethos, trying to get more Black people into swimming, because the statistics show that, there aren't enough of us getting in the water.
According to Active Live figures, in England, 71.1% of white British children don't participate in regular swimming activities, a number that rises to over 79% amongst Asian children and 81.1% among Black children. In adults, those numbers are starker still. 91.1% of white British adults don't participate in regular swimming activities, rising to almost 96% among Asian adults and a staggering 96.5% among Black adults.
There are a lot of issues which the industry is facing as an aquatic industry, but then also specifically for Black and Asian communities. And there's a lot of work that has to be done. Unfortunately, we can't snap our fingers and have everybody learn to swim, no matter how much money might come our way. So it's a lot of time, it's a lot of patience. I think the future's bright. It's just a lot of hard work coming our way.
Driving positive aquatic change for minorities is at the forefront of the Black Tribe philosophy. They hope their impact is making waves. Dan Ogden-Shapin, BBC News.
Grand. Oh, it's good, isn't it? It really made me smile. I loved it when there were the interviews that they're called talking heads, the interviews, the really short interviews with people who were there at the swim session, just saying, it's amazing, or I've really surprised myself. You can't help but smile and really feel the joy. And I'm telling you for an absolute fact, the broadcast journalist was like, yes, this is perfect. As they were saying it, they could feel the edit in their head. Kelly, what was it like filming?
Filming on the day. So filming on the day was hectic. It was a lot of people. I think this is why this shot on screen is the most important. Where you might see one of me, I think they sent out 2 camera people, 1 person that was holding lights, plus the guy that you see interviewing me, who was the presenter for BBC. So it's a lot of people to manage. Then, in addition to that, you're doing whatever activity it is that you do. So might it be counting flowers? Might it be, in our case, it was actual swimming lesson. So they came in the middle of a swimming lesson and they wanted to see what it was like organically. And that is exactly what it's like organically. So bearing in mind, it's a busy opportunity, but it is a wonderful opportunity. I'm gonna wait for the next question.
Yeah, no, please go on.
I would then double that up with, I know a lot of us are doing this in addition to full-time jobs. So if you have an opportunity to do on the day press, whatever it might be, ensure that is all you're doing. So you can't teach, you can't lead, you can't do anything else, because that team or whoever's come out to interview or make a press release or whatever type of medium it's going to be, they will want your full attention. They're going to say, I need another angle. Oh, I'm going to take that shot again, but from this angle. I will say that line one more time. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to name particular press type organizations. So it's also really important to be aware of what medium you're doing the content for. So for example, we've done BBC and we've done ITV. For BBC, you can't wear certain things, you can't dress in a certain way, you can't have any logos on show. So as you can see, really subtle differences if you've never been in that experience before. But this has actually got double branding on it. So it's got BTT's logo plus the company that the changing room is from's logo, red, and neither of those were seen on camera at any point in time. So being mindful that if you do have something branded on, and even when it is sometimes your own brand, they might take that out, just due to the way that particular organization work. Whereas if you compare it to when we've done things for Triathlon World, which is an American company, American press, and ITV, they have completely different rules entirely. So make sure you've got dedicated time for the people that are coming to interview or take whatever medium it is, and ensure that you're appropriate for the medium that you're doing.
Yeah, that's really good advice. There's also certain types of fabric that look odd on broadcast cameras. It's not such an issue now, but it used to be with older cameras. So I would always say wear what you're comfortable in. Be mindful of what Kelly said about like really obvious logos. The BBC particularly sometimes go, have you got a different top? And it's really useful. It's not going to throw you if you go, yes, I've got a jacket, or I can put this hoodie on, or whatever it is, as opposed to like having to swap clothes with a friend who isn't your size or something chaos. You just don't need the extra chaos. One of the pieces of advice that I was given when I first started in TV was to think about where your feet are, where your eyes are, and where your hands are, because sometimes being in front of a microphone or in front of a camera is kind of stressful, and you feel like there's a lot riding on this. You don't want to get it wrong. You want to do a really good job. The adrenaline is going. So think about grounding your feet, do all that stuff like spreading your toes, breathe deep, shoulders down, and then think about like where my feet are anchored is where I'm safe to stay. Sometimes they'll want you to walk and talk, which sometimes feels easier because you don't have to force yourself to stay still. Most of the time with like with radio, you can look wherever you like, just and they'll follow you with a microphone. Whereas on TV, if you're being filmed, or for something online where it's being filmed, just look at the journalist and then try and ignore absolutely everything else. It's just you talking to another human who's over there who is interested in what you're saying, and just talk in sentences. It's totally fine. So kind of point your feet in the direction of where your eyes want to be, and you won't feel weird about like turning your body around. And if you're worried about what your hands are going to do, then shove them in your pockets, put them behind your back, just hold on to, they can hold each other, and then you're holding hands with someone and it will make you feel better. There you go. That's my advice. The other question is, what happens, Kelly? So your little beginning bit of that bit of BBC, you were so fluent. I loved it. It was like a masterclass. Did you practice?
No.
Just a pro.
No, I'm not. And I think anyone that knows me can attest to this. I don't have the time. And I think this is something that people in this group can relate to. On that day, I start work at anywhere between 6:30 and 7:30 in the morning. I then drove from Brighton to London because I work in Sussex. I then had to teach half an hour before this started. I then had to set up all the flags in the background. And then when they got there, I just said, let's go. Let's just go. So there was no practice. There was no recording. It's you know your stuff. You as a lot of us here will be founders or leaders, or it will be your business. No one knows it better than you. So I think for me, don't overthink it. He's a human being, or whoever will be doing the press with you is a human being just like you. They have fears, they have anxieties, and really take it away from that sort of pressure.
Yeah, really good advice. Another bit of advice when I'm doing the interviewing as a broadcast journalist is if I say, so who are Black Tribe? If it's much easier for me in the edit if I can edit out my question. Often you'll find in news interviews, you don't really hear that much from the journalist except when they're doing either a piece to camera, so you can see them, like when that guy was standing in front of the screen with the statistics, or when you can hear their voiceover over pictures of people swimming or whatever, or archive of Alex Yee winning the triathlon race. But when he's talking to Kelly Smith, you don't hear his question. We just go straight to Kelly answering. So if I say, well, what is Black Tribe? One of the things that's really useful is Kelly starting with, Black Tribe is, sorry, there's someone doing something really weird outside my door. Can you hear it?
No, you've got
Okay.
good.
I'll carry on. Black Tribe is all about X, Y, and Z. So then I can keep the name, either that or I have to script it in advance, but it just gives me an option. So start the, why is getting outside really important for people's mental health? Instead of saying, because it gives us a sense of well-being and you spend more time and exposure to the sun is X, Y, and Z, you say, spending time outside is really good for our mental health because X, Y, and Z. So always try and kind of put the question into the start of your answer. It just makes life so much easier. And if you make my life easy as a broadcast journalist, I will use more of you in my final package when I'm editing all the bits together.
I think on that point as well, Mary-Ann, I would also say prior to whatever it is, and this is the bit of PR that I think Lise really touched on. Spend time getting to know whoever your journalist is. What are you looking for? What are they trying to get out of the piece? Because this is their job and their angle will be particular to the story that they're trying to sell. So yes, you have something that you're trying to sell, but so do they. So I think what's really helpful is, okay, I knew that he wanted to link a piece about the Olympics to something about the Olympics to something local to make people feel like they can connect. What can I do to bring those two together? And it's about having that in mind when you're answering questions, what angle they're trying to go for.
Yeah, that's really wise. Yeah. And kind of think of it as often people worry about press and they feel like they need to be on the defense, that things are going to get taken out of context or they're going to get exploited. There is always that risk. But depending on who the journalist is, what the outlet is, whether you feel like you can trust this, you kind of asked your prep questions so you get a sense of what it is that they're trying to do before they turn up. Then kind of approach the actual day as an opportunity for partnership and like collaborating to get the best story out, because they don't want a rubbish story and they also, you don't want a rubbish story. So your interests are aligned at that point. If they do ask you, and in a minute we're going to talk about tricky questions, but if they ask you a question that you're like, hang on a minute, the thing that I want to really talk about is creating spaces for broad-based participation, you can try a thing. You don't need to be really good at swimming. You might not even know how to swim, but you are still welcome to join our community, whatever it is. Sometimes you can answer the question that you want them to have asked you, not the question that they have asked you. So if they're saying, how much has the Olympics impacted people coming to your group? And you're like, not at all. You don't have to answer the question. Don't even waste your time answering the question. Say, the really important thing is that we create opportunities for people to try a new thing. That's why we have the catch line, try a thing, blah, 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 blah. So you're not really answering the person's question. You can just in your head translate. Their question is a prompt to say, talk now, Kelly Smith, because as Kelly said, Kelly knows way more about this than the journalist. They've probably had like 3 hours. They were quickly reading on the train before they got to you. They might be super expert, but they're still never going to be as much of an expert as you. They're never going to understand the nuance. They're never going to have the care and the passion that you do. So you can really throw that into your answers. And it also gives you control, because you are only saying things that you are willing for them to use. Don't say anything you don't want them to use. If you haven't said it, they can't use it. I think that's great. I love it, Kelly. I think it's brilliant. What have you got coming up? And how do you, off the back of something like the BBC News piece or the ITV piece, which you can find on Black Tri Tribe's socials on TikTok and Instagram, if you want to see more of Kelly doing her thing and her group, and their group, sorry. How do you make the most of it when something like this has come your way, Kelly?
People power. What I'm going to say in regards to people power is sharing it within your network, making sure your network are aware that you've done a really great thing. You have a following and you have a community that really love what you do, which is why they're a part of your community or a part of your following. So use that. I would also say when you're on the back of something, it's important to bring people on the journey. And I think this is something that I learned personally, which is you can't expect people to celebrate something they didn't know happened. So if you're thinking to yourself, well, oh my goodness, I was on the BBC and no one clapped for me. Well, did you share it? Did you put it in your newsletter? Did you put it on your WhatsApp status? Did you tell people? I think we also focus a little bit too heavily on the digital side. Did you actually tell members when they were attending whatever walk session it was? Did you say, oh yeah, we were on the BBC the other day, actually. Did you catch it? Oh, can I catch it on catch up? Where to find it, what it was about, and how to engage. So that's practical things that you can do on the back of it. What you can do to get more PR on the back of it is send it to other organizations. So funny enough, someone asked a question that I'm going to coattail onto because I'm talking now. And the question was, well, it was something around, what do you do? I can't remember, but I will link it back. When we did I do remember. If you don't reply quick enough to press, will you lose the opportunity? Something like that. Yes. So, for example, I work full time, and sometimes when I'm being really disciplined at work, you can't be everything to everybody. I'm going to put that out there as well. Mm-hmm. When I'm great at my job, it means that I'm being poor at BTT. When I'm doing great at BTT, I might not be a good friend in that moment. So hold that. So I was really great at work that week. I was really meeting all of my deadlines, and ITV emailed and they called, and I said, you know what, I'm at work and I can't right now. I then tried to respond at 5:30, and they moved on to another community group that did respond when they contacted. Now, at the time I was gutted. I was just like, oh my goodness, I've missed out on ITV. They're never gonna come and talk to me again. Fast forward another year, I did BBC. And ITV came running back. So it happens. And the second time around, they were willing to work with me. So I think it's also about knowing that, yes, you might have missed an opportunity, but one opportunity will come to another, and nothing happens before its time.
Okay, nice. That's very good. That's very good advice, that sometimes that opportunity is going to slide on by, and don't lose sleep over it, because there's always going to be another one coming along. And actually, sometimes the prep that you've done, or always, in fact, the prep that you've done for one thing is going to serve you well. Have that information. So if you've compiled briefing notes or like prep documents, just keep them safe, because some of the stuff will still be true a month's time, it'll be relevant for building a new press release. It might be relevant for updating your website. So some of the work, like when you're building a press release, that could be the basis for preparing for if they do want to interview you, or if you are going to be interviewed on a podcast, print it out or make your notes, however you make your notes, based on that. Like, who are we? What do we do? What is the purpose of the existence of our organization, or why am I motivated to do the adventures that I do? What kind of solution are we offering to what kind of problem? The question around what is the wider background context of this? So could it be underrepresentation of people, Black people who swim or don't swim for that matter? Could it be about people from, I don't know, this particular coastal town who never have access to the coast? And why might that be? Is that represented around the whole country, or is that something specific to our town, our city, our county? Local news always love a local angle. So it could be something like, Kelly, you lead walks for Black Girls Hike as well, right, for Sussex?
I did. You are very, very good memory. That was about 5 years ago. So
Okay.
no. And it's not a bad thing. And I would say that actually doubles down on your point, which is whatever you've done in the past serves you really well. And the connections that you make in the past sometimes follow you through. So some of the people that I've met when I did do Black Girls Hike have still continued on and fed into Black Tribe. So it has worked really, really well. But I would the sentiment is still true. So the ITV piece that we eventually did get was ITV Meridian. And ITV Meridian followed us on a local walk in a local area called Woodingdean in Brighton, which actually worked really well because people could relate and they knew it was close and it was a nice walk. And it wasn't a complex thing. It was something that people could really cling to, whether you were a person of colour or not. So I thought that was, in terms of the local element, there's a huge local support. Lise also mentioned about local newspapers. We get a lot more engagement from small scale things. And I think this is really important. When people hear BBC, ITV, US News, they think, oh my goodness, that's amazing. But actually, if you look at our views on something like our BBC post, our most engaged posts are actually really local things. Our most recent, most engaged post is a 21-year-old talking about her day at the triathlon with bad sound, bad quality, and was shot on an iPhone. So, so it's really about what people connect to. So yes, the BBC might sound great and it's great for getting other things, but it really depends on what you're trying to do with the piece of media that you're getting. Are you trying to expand? Are you trying to get more visibility? Are you trying to get more members? Are you trying to promote the next thing you're doing? So there's always a positive that can come out of it, because actually the BBC piece didn't bring us much in terms of participants. It didn't bring us much in terms of followers. We didn't get any more likes. We didn't get any more views. But local pieces, the BBC Meridian piece, we got a lot more walkers.
Yeah. Steph Wetherell, when I interviewed her, she said that she was really, really excited because they were featured on BBC Women's Hour, and she was like, this is it.
Huge.
This is going to be huge. We're ready. Just took the day off work, the works, and then nothing really happened. No more followers, no more people signing up to join the walks or the community. But she said that the thing that she realised was that actually people who are in like strategic positions within the BBC, within like Sport England, listened. And so way down the line, it had an impact. But what happened in terms of actual engagement with the community, their biggest uptake wasn't BBC Women's Hour, which she felt like was going to be a big deal. It was a body positivity podcast that she had approached, because she saw that she followed them on their socials, she listened to the podcast, liked what they were doing, saw that they put out a call out saying, does anyone have any suggestions for interviewees and guests for our next series? So she volunteered herself. She said, I'd love to be on. This is what we do. This is what we talk about. This is what our community represents. So they invited her on. She prepared for the podcast interview, and they got loads more followers because of that, and a real uplift in engagement with people who really care about the stuff that they do. So she said, like, sometimes you can't really predict from a kind of cold standing start which things are going to lead to good things. They did a really small interview with BBC Yorkshire, but then it got picked up by BBC News, and then it almost led to a kind of feature on the One Show. If they tried to go for the One Show in the first place, nothing would have happened. It would have just ended up in an inbox to a generic email that no one ever checks. But actually being featured by a local journalist for a local website page led to lots of other things. So that's the thing, kind of press leads to press, definitely.
Definitely.
For sure. Thank you very much. Let's talk to Nik. Hi, Nik.
Hello, how the devil are you?
All right, thanks. Thanks for your patience. Good listening.
I just went for a doze.
I won't take it personally. It's okay, honestly. The one thing that we'll come back to, folks, I am conscious of the time, but I wanted to talk to Nik first, was tricky questions, but maybe we can cover that as well, Nik.
Yep.
So Nik, you're a disability content creator, aka the Disabled Adventurer. You create accessibility videos, venues, places and trails, and you also are particularly famous for going up very steep mountains on an epic all-terrain wheelchair. Tell us more.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything I do is about getting people outdoors, whether that's inspiring them, motivating them, empowering them, or actually enabling them. And yeah, I ended up in a wheelchair in 2022 because of a spinal injury from the army. And I was looking around for things to do, activities. I'm in a power wheelchair specifically. And there was shooting, archery, bits and pieces, wasn't enough for me. And I love the outdoors. And what I found was there's a charity called Backup where they drag wheelchair users up Mount Snowdon. But it's like team of 16, 20 people who carry you up. And I was like, well, that's rubbish, because A, how many people can get a team of 16, 20 people together? And B, that might be one time a year. So why can't a family of four or something go up? And I naively went into a local engineering firm and was like, yeah, I want a chair, 4 wheels, battery, couple of motors, so I can take it up Snowdon, 1,085 meters. And they looked at me completely weird. And then they came back 2 weeks later and said, yeah, we're going to do this. We'll develop it. We'll build it. And it resulted in Rock Climber. So if anyone does hashtag Rock Climber, you'll see the insane videos. And cut a very long story short, after 2.5 years, we finally got up Snowdon. But the big difference between this and any other thing to do with wheelchairs going up Snowdon was the fact that we did it completely unaided. So there's no big team. There was no ropes attached pulling it. There was no ramps. It's literally me in Rock Climber, clambering over 0.5 meter high rocks and boulders and literally bounded myself up Snowdon. And since becoming disabled, I've found loneliness is a massive issue for me. And so getting outdoors through Project Rock Climber literally saved my life. And that's how all these accessibility videos came round. And so now I create accessibility videos of accessible trails, create a library so people can find them and they know ahead of time what to expect so they can decide if it's accessible for them or not.
Amazing. The rock climber experience up with Snowdon was featured by the BBC as well. The BBC is getting a lot of coverage tonight. Let's just watch this short little clip, because there was a kind of package, a pre-recorded package, like the thing that they did with Black Tribe, but then they cut to a live broadcast at Salford Quay. So let's watch the live bit.
Look at the smile on your face. You absolutely love it, don't you? It essentially enables you to do things you might not have dreamed of doing.
Oh, yeah, you know, look, I know there's a lot of things about the mountains and stuff, but like I said before, when I was in a really dark place before this was around, and adapting to being a chair user, accessibility is such a problem in this country. And I couldn't find anything to do to get outdoors. And I love that with being in the army. So, yeah, I say that wheelchairs give you independence. This gives you sheer joy and freedom. I think Sally said in the piece that it looks like you're fearless. You don't have to worry. Damn straight, you don't have to. What's that? That's fine. We'll just go over that. Because I think, as you said in the film, you did Snowdon one day, and the next day you couldn't even go into a local shop because on your normal chair there wasn't a drop curb at 10 centimetres or whatever. Yeah, it was totally surreal. Thinking we got up Snowdon, totally no support whatsoever, and then to get stuck. It was an overgrown bramble bush in the way of the pavement, and then there wasn't a drop curb in sight, so I had to go all the way back round. It's like, these chairs are 15 odd grand, but you can't go down a 10 centimetre curb.
Yeah, it's crazy. And ultimately, very quickly, what's the dream? What's the big idea?
This is all about accessibility at the end of the day. We want to make the outdoors more accessible for everyone, everywhere. And ultimately, this is a big machine, but the guys are working on a daily one. And, you know, you just got to get out there and have some fun in life, don't you?
Yeah, good for you. Absolutely. Nik, fantastic stuff. Andrew and Elliot, thank you so much. Give us another twirl if you wouldn't mind. And we'll hand you back to the studio as we watch Nik and the guys, rock climber, do its thing. Let's hope it really does, is that sort of kernel of an idea, really, something that can make a real difference to people's everyday lives. Back to you two.
Look at that. Took us a couple of seconds. Well done, Nik. Thank you, John.
I love it. It's about having a little bit more fun in life. Let's do that, sure.
Nice one. That's quite a steep hill you were going up there.
Yeah. It will do a 45-degree slope.
Oof. Do you have a seatbelt?
Yeah, it's well, I'm quite a big lad, so you know, center of gravity is really low, so there's no problem.
Well, I'm reassured. There we go. So how was that experience? Because you'd already filmed with your own team going up the mountain on your challenge, but then what was the experience of filming live?
Yeah, so this ties quite nicely with what Kelly was saying before, actually, because we did it in July 24 last year, and basically we got no media coverage. And it was round about the time of the Paralympics, and then it was the government, and then it was someone else, and then it was someone else. So they finally did it. That was done in October time, I think it was. And so myself and John Maguire, the journalist, we'd actually been working on a piece for 18 months, and it just kept being pushed back by producers and just a whole range of different things. So yeah, you've got to be persistent, you've got to be patient. And if it was the relationship I had with John. Now, because ADHD and because of meds I'm on and stuff like that, I sometimes struggle to think of the right answer on the spot, and to do so in a very succinct manner. So when you're pre-filming it, you can make all the mistakes and do all that kind of stuff, and if you're not happy with what you've said or things, generally they tend to refilm it. When you're actually live,
or you can actually say, oh, can I say that again, and then you just go straight for another one. They're
they're usually fine with that. But when you're actually live, he said right at the end, so what's your ultimate goal or whatever it was. And I didn't actually say the ultimate goal of what I wanted to do. He told me everything he was going to ask me apart from that one. And so there's no do-overs. It's out there and gone. So it was a different set. There's a lot of waiting around, and I thought there'd be a lot more planned, prepared, much more in ahead of time. But even on the morning that we were there, timing has kept slipping and things like that all the way through. So I felt a bit more pressure because it was live, to be honest.
Did you prepare in any way? Did you practice what you were going to say? Write it down, say it to the mirror, say it to a friend or a colleague or the journalist?
Yeah, so as we were driving up to Manchester, I was basically talking through it with one of the guys. And it was that constant, this is your messaging, this is your messaging, this is the point that you want to be doing. And we kept going through it until I got rid of a lot of the waffle, and it had become very succinct. But it was that one last question he squeezed in that I wasn't even prepared for. I mean, generally I've got it out there. But what really helped, and again, Kelly said it, was how do you follow it up on that? It's like an event. Once you do the event or you do a big challenge or something, the work doesn't stop then. You've then got to carry on and you've got to share it. You've got to keep putting it out there. And that's something I've learned by mistake, by going, oh, well, I've had the interview now. Brilliant, great, job done. Well, actually, you want to be promoting it and maximizing it the best you can.
Yeah. Okay, so let's briefly talk about preparing what you might say, whether that is for something that's pre-recorded, whether it's for a podcast interview, radio interview, or a live TV or radio thing. When it's written, when it's a newspaper piece, you get to do over. Just be mindful of not saying anything that you're going to be like, oh no, they might use that and quote me and it'll be terrible. They will not generally, unless you're recording with an outlet who have form in turning something into a clickbait, nasty piece of journalism, in which case probably don't be talking to those folk.
Yeah.
If it's another outlet, they're not trying to catch you out. That is generally not what's happening. And so you can kind of have confidence that the thing that you're going to say, they're going to try and hold to truthfully and honestly. So the thing that you need to think about is like, well, what is it that I want to be saying about the work that I'm doing, the adventure that I'm going on, the work that our group are doing, or the communities that we want to reach or work with. So these kind of headlines can help you, depending on how you work. You can either kind of read them and like make notes for yourself. You could write out by hand. I'm a handwriting person. I would write out verbatim what it was I would say. So what am I doing on Thursday evening? On Thursday evening, start the question with the answer. Start the answer with the question. On Thursday evening, I'll be hosting a blah, 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 blah. And I would literally write down word for word how I would say it in an informal and conversational way. So you're not writing an essay or some kind of formal legal document. You're just writing down the words of what you would actually say. Who are you? What do you do? What is that? What is your community group? How did you get started? So where did this whole thing begin? It's once again, you're in control. It's up to you how much history you want to get into. If it's a personal story, you can start way back with a childhood incident. You can talk about your mental health. You can talk about physical experiences, where you've lived in the world, all the sorts of things about the kind of the deep history. Or you can say the kind of how did you begin could be something, for example, for Nik, putting words into your mouth here, forgive me. It could be something about the inaccessibility of the British countryside. So it could be a personal thing, or it could be a society world outside thing.
Yeah, so preparing for it for me is making sure I understand what I'm being interviewed for. Mm-hmm. What is their kind of angle, or really kind of, and you can do that on telephone call conversations, whatever, and really make sure you fully understand what it's going to be. The getting it succinct. I mean, this really helps with the structure of your organization, your vision, your mission, these kind of things, because they also overflow into what is your purpose as an individual? What is your identity? Who are you? As I have my professional identity as disabled adventurer, and then I have my Nik Wilson, and then I've got my I'm in a lot of pain and I'm a miserable bugger. That's a whole nother identity. So it kind of understanding that, who are they speaking to today? Is this Nik Wilson with lived experience, me, because it's a personal story? Is this disabled adventurer because it's about accessibility, predominantly in the outside, and how we can get people outside? And then understanding which person I need to come at, it then has the key aims. And when you're gain real clarity on what your focus is and what you want to achieve, that really helps you within the interviews, knowing who to turn up as, really understanding what the actual interview is all about. And like I say, all of this really helps for your strategic side and also your personal life.
Yeah, nice. And I think one of the things that's really important as well is to also reflect on like the honest personal response. So while you're drafting, while you're practicing, trying to work out what is the kernel of what you're trying to say, the essence of what you're trying to say, you can be quite honest and passionate. Don't try and keep that
a robot.
Yeah, don't be a robot. So kind of the more times I think you practice not learning word for word, you don't need to learn a script, but your mouth and your brain need to get familiar with the sounds coming out. So when you're saying it to the journalist who's either making notes or recording you or filming you, isn't the first time you've said those words. So they feel familiar. You've got that kind of almost that muscle memory of what it is that you do. And it means that the more opportunities you have to say it and practice, like find a trusted friend. If you don't have a trusted friend, talk to the mirror, record yourself on your phone. It feels super squirmy to start off with, but no one else needs to hear it. It's just for you to practice, to go, actually, that doesn't sound so wild. It sounds perfectly coherent. And if you can't judge for yourself because you're too in your head and you're like, oh, it all sounds crazy now, then do find someone on All the Elements will help you out. They will offer to be a buddy. Like, we're here for each other, so lean into that. Frankie's smiling. Frankie will listen. She'll give you a straight up a school report.
Yeah, I mean, through the stuff I do a lot of social media. I know we're looking at media. I think I've only really been the past year properly full time as a disabled adventurer, and everyone says to me, like, why am I getting so many followers on the online community? Why is it growing so much? When I'm doing the videos, why is it so relatable? And it's come down to one key element, really, which is authenticity. It's show up as you, be who you are. Don't be the robot. You just have an idea. It's just about having clarity on actually what your aim is and who you are and what you're doing. But don't be afraid to be real. Sometimes for some people, I'm overly real and a bit too brutally honest, but that's who I am, and so I'm comfortable in that skin. So be who you are when you're speaking to them, and people will really. It's so powerful when you are your authentic self, because then people connect with you on a personal level, whether that's written media, TV, radio, whatever. And they will respect you for being your real authentic self.
Okay, great. Thank you, Nik. I want to talk about tricky questions, and then we'll open up to questions from the audience. So handling tricky questions, just briefly, and then I'll invite Lise and Kelly if you want to unmute yourselves as well. You might have thoughts on this as well. So if you don't want to answer the question, you don't have to answer the question. That's the thing that you have to hold in mind. But what do you do about that? You can either say, I don't want to answer that, and chances are that I'll throw you off your own game, so it won't do you any favors. What you can do instead is, so if, for example, off the top of my head, let's think of a nasty kind of tricky question. A hiking group just for black women, that's divisive, isn't it? That's a bit racist, isn't it?
I get that a lot.
Oh, you get that a lot. Okay, there you go. A tricky question, not a very pleasant one. One that I would hope that a journalist wouldn't ask you, but they might say, what would you say to people who say that a black women only triathlon club is racist? Now, I would say number one is do not repeat the negative framing. So do not say a triathlon club for black women is not racist, because what the audience hears is triathlon club for black women and the word racist. Those are the things that stick in our mind. So I would not answer with the question in that circumstance. That's the only time. Do not answer with the question again. Instead, you can promote the group. So you've heard the question, you might want to respond to it, but you're going to do it in your own way, and you're going to do it in a way that gives you control around what you're saying. So you can say, Black Tribe is all about creating a welcoming, warm space for everybody who wants to try multidisciplinary sport, whatever. I mean, off the top of my head. So you've kind of answered the question, but you haven't repeated the harmful framing. And you've also taken control of where the direction of the conversation might go. You can promote the positive. So you can talk about the really important thing about making the outdoors a more accessible space for everybody, regardless of whether they use a wheelchair or not, is blah, 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 blah. You could go up a strategic level. Look, getting outdoors is good for our health. Everybody knows that. And then you can say whatever you like, because you've stated a factual statement to them. So you've shut them down, and you've kind of demonstrated to the journalist and potentially to the audience if they use it, don't talk to me about that. I know your game. So once again, you're claiming control and responsibility. And then you can address it head on. You can say, some people say it's racist, but they're wrong. and like really call it out. If you're confident to do that, and depending on how you think it might get used. If you're really pushed, yeah. But what would you say? Again, I think you might be talking to a dodgy journalist at this point. I would never ask someone that. I would always check if there was something that felt like it might be provocative, tricky. I would give them a heads up. I'm wondering about asking you about anti-racism so that I give you a chance to give me a good answer. And if you're like, oh, actually, I don't think I do want to go there, then I would respect that. So if you're really pushed, for example, you're on live TV, I don't know, you've agreed to do fascisttv.uk for want of a, you kind of thought maybe it would be okay. But yeah, we all have to own our dodgy choices sometimes. You could say, I wouldn't say, I don't want to answer that. I would say, I don't really have a comment on that. What I would say is, and then you can say whatever you like. So again, so that it's not the first time you're saying these words when you're pushed, when the adrenaline is coursing and you're like, oh my gosh, they really are asking me that horrific question. This bunch of racists, misogynists, whoever they are, and you're all up in your head, practice at home when you're feeling super calm, or with your team, you can workshop it. They can ask you some hard question or a nasty question, and you can say, I don't really have a comment on that, because that immediately makes the journalist squirm, and potentially the audience, if they're like, I was thinking that, and now I've been shut down. What I would say is this, and then you need to know what you're going to say. So once again, practice so it feels fluent, so it trips off the tongue. You don't need to waste energy on it, and you feel super controlled. That's my point. Nik, Lise, Kelly, thoughts?
I mean, I would link it back. I think Kelly said in her piece that what we do it because we're passionate about it, right? So, and I always say you stick to your lane, your lived experience. If you come from that and that's what you're doing, point I'm kind of trying to make on that is you really know it. And so for me, especially with disability, I've heard so many different elements of it, and I've retrained my mind to go, okay, they're not sure. And so it'd be a case of I don't think it's quite like that. And then pushing the positive side of it, and accessibility isn't just for disabled people. It also helps loads of others, parents, elderly, etc. And the factual one for me is probably the one, like you say, because when you put the facts down, which because you're passionate about it, they can't really come back with a different angle. They can't argue with facts.
Yep. Sound advice.
I would also, because I think, Mary-Ann, and I think you've touched on this a few times in different ways, what happens if you choose to engage with more creative characters in the media space, is the way I'm going to frame them. What if you choose to take, because I think for a lot of us, if you've been doing this for a while and you haven't gotten any exposure, sometimes you think to yourself, okay, maybe I might go on fascisttv.com and I might argue with someone that's going to shout at me for 2 hours. And if I choose, and there's no judgment from me, if you choose to engage in that, how do I approach those situations? I would say have a very, very clear goal on what you are aiming to achieve. Forget them. Absolutely forget whatever they've got to say. Have a very clear aim and ambition on what you want to achieve. Something that Nik and I have discussed was sometimes, and unfortunately, the more provocative comments actually get more press. And if you enter those spaces with the intention or the knowledge that provocative pieces receive more press, then you also need to be prepared for that. And if that's something that you're willing to engage with, have an exit strategy, have a very clear framework on how you're going to handle those individuals, have a very clear idea of what your potential response is. As you said, talk to a group of friends, or maybe you might not have friends that will ask those particular questions or even have those particular thoughts. So for me, it would be about entering into that knowingly and having a very clear ambition for what you're going to use that for. Because unfortunately for us, sometimes our negative press does help boost our visibility and engagement on both ends. So we get positive press and we get negative press. And sometimes the negative press has positive outcomes and sometimes the positive press has negative outcomes. And it's being prepared for both of those things.
Yeah, I would second that. Talking to Soraya, the founder of All the Elements, she said one of the things to bear in mind is that if you're, and again, no judgment, there's no one right way of doing this. But for example, people who are responding with a reel to a comment, for example, that is a kind of, I don't know, a obviously harmful, racist something or other, ask yourself who is going to see that reel? Because if it's your community, predominantly your community, what you might be doing is doubling down on a sense of safety or a lack of sense of safety or a sense of threat. What you might also be doing is calling it out and sort of like shining a light on the shadows. So again, you don't need one strategy. And all this stuff about press and media is it takes up time and energy. It might not require lots of money in the bank account, but it does require loads of yourself or your team. So you can switch tactics depending on what is in the bank of time and energy and human resource. So if you're all about to go on a trip, you're all going to be on holiday, you want to just like take some downtime, then that is not the time to necessarily be sending out press releases or be really active. Think of social media and the kind of comment spaces that you can control. Think of it as your living room. You're in charge of who you invite to the party and you can kick them out if you want to. So don't be afraid to block, delete, report. Do not be afraid to turn off comments. If you don't want to have to deal with it, then don't allow comments. You can turn them back on at a later point. And sometimes when you're working with a trusted journalist, you can also talk to them about their online allyship. So give them a heads up that this might be something that might end up with controversial comments. Do they have a policy for that? Are they going to be able to moderate that within the few hours after publication or transmission, when it's been on TV or on radio, because often that's when those clips get shared. That's when there's the most activity around that piece of media. So if they are not willing to moderate, they need to not allow comments. Sometimes you can't control it. So you might end up with something that gets posted onto a Facebook page that doesn't really get moderated, and there's some horrific nonsense on there. Look after yourselves. You don't need to read that stuff. What you can do is buddy up. So someone who's going to be less directly, immediately, personally affected can do the housekeeping for you, and you can do the housekeeping for them. And then there's also a strategy that it's an international movement called I Am Here. So basically, if you see harmful stuff being written about a post, you can actually go along and find the cool stuff, unlike the supportive or thoughtful comments, give them a like, give them an uptick or an upvote. You can drown out the hate with positive stuff. So ignore the haters, but say, this looks absolutely amazing, or wow, what a view, or I bet that bonnet was itchy, whatever it is, so that you kind of lift up the positives, and the hate, just kind of by virtue of the mass of comments, you're drowning it out in a good way, in a supportive solidarity kind of way. Do we have any more questions from the group, folks? There was one question, Lise, this might be one that's going to you, and it is about press releases particularly. Would you suggest in that email that you're sending to whoever, are you putting the headline, the catchy headline, as the subject of the email?
Yeah, I mean, I would. Depends what it is, right? But you want to put in that subject what you think is going to most grab their attention. And you can also put press release in it as well sometimes, just so they know it's a press release, and then you put the title after that. But yeah, I would probably use the same title.
Okay, great. So kind of press release, colon, and then the title, the catchy title to catch their eye. Brilliant. That's fantastic. Does anyone have any final top tips or final thoughts to leave folk on? Let's start with you, Nik. Go ahead.
Just go back to, again, be you. Don't try and be someone else, or I've got to be like this for this journalist or anything. Be you, because people will buy into you. And yeah, just manage your expectations, and just have a proper think of how much you want to put yourself out there. But yeah, be authentic and be you, and really enjoy the good, positive stuff, and just let go of the crap, right? Because you're all amazing and you can do it. Keep an eye on the positive.
Nice one. Thank you. Lise, go on, give us a top tip.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Just be yourself, and also, I think I said it earlier, but don't be afraid to reach out to press. Like, they're not scary people, they're just normal people. I remember I used to have press releases ready to go, and I'd be so nervous like sending them out. But yeah, just don't be afraid to send them stories and email them and chat to them and treat them like you would a friend, and just chat, and yeah, be yourself, like Nik said. So yeah, that would probably be my bit of advice. They want to hear from you. They want the stories, so you can, be their helper and give them a good story.
That's really great advice, that they want to hear from you. Yeah, that's really good thing to hold in mind. And last but not least, Kelly Smith.
For me, it would be have a clear bottom line. So have a very clear vision, aim, ambition, mission statement, tagline, whatever you want to call it. Have a very clear bottom line on what it is you're trying to get across, what it is your vision is, what it is that you're hoping to get out of this, what is the intent, and double down on your bottom line on where you're not willing to go, what you're not willing to share, what you're not willing to discuss. Have topics that are absolutely off topic or off limits and are just not up for debate. And I think having boundaries in that way and having clarity in what you're aiming to achieve will very much spearhead the direction of whatever PR you go into.
Amazing. That's it. You're in control. You get to say what the story is. Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Nik Wilson, Lise Worltey and Kelly Smith. Frankie, over to you.
And a huge thank you, Mary-Ann, for such amazing hosting. A huge amount of stuff that was in there. I am just going to be a few minutes on housekeeping. I promise I will only keep everybody another extra minute. Just to say that before I pause the recording, I will add on the little bit of Steph's clip just at the end. So if you're watching us on catch up, keep watching and the recording will follow shortly. And if you're still with us live, thank you for staying with us. We will send out the recording as part of the follow-up email and you'll be able to scan through to the end and then watch it afterwards. I think that'll be the easiest way of sharing it.
Yeah.
We have a few opportunities for you to look out for in that follow-up email. There will be the recording link, so please do share it with anybody that you think will find it helpful, and it'll be there for you to come back to when you're in the depths of writing those press releases. We have some opportunities to book in one-to-one calls with the speakers from the Resilient Community series. So if you're thinking, this has been amazing, but how do I adapt it to my organisation? I'd love to chat to Mary-Ann, or maybe I'd really like to pick Lisa's brains about writing a press release. Drop an email to hello@alltheelements.co and we'll be able to connect you. We're really lucky that through our funding, we've got the money to be able to pay our wonderful facilitators for their time for those one-to-ones, but they will be free for you. So please do use that resource. There is also going to be a feedback form. I would greatly appreciate it if you could fill it in. All of these sessions are based on your feedback, so it really will make an impact. I think that is the last thing to say. Oh, just one final thing is that at All the Elements, these online events are a tiny little bit of the work we do. So if you're not familiar with our work, please look out for that follow-up email and there will be more ways about finding out about what we do and getting in touch. And then just a huge thank you to the panelists, to Lise, Kelly and Nik, and of course to Mary-Ann. You've been amazing. This has been such an informative session and we're so grateful for your time and expertise. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I'm Steph Wetherell. I am one of the co-founders and the coordinator for Everybody Outdoors, which is an organisation working for plus size inclusion in the outdoors.
Now, Steph, you've had some really amazing coverage. Your community has grown significantly over the last few years. What have your experiences been of working with the press and media?
I think the first thing I'd say is the things that I thought was going to have a really big impact aren't always the ones that have had the biggest impact, or things have had an impact in a different way than I thought they would. So we got featured on Women's Hour, for example, like a pre-recorded piece.
On
and I think
Radio 4.
on Radio 4, yeah, Radio 4 Women's Hour. And I think I thought that was going to have a huge impact and we're going to gain loads of people to the community. And that just didn't happen. But what I did find from that is that some key strategic people listened to that kind of thing. And actually that opened up some different contacts. In terms of gaining an audience, the thing that we've had the greatest traction with and that has brought the most people is a kind of body positivity podcast I did, which is quite niche. Most people will never have heard of it. You know, it was run by somebody from Bake Off. But that had a huge influx of people into the community and is how a lot of people found it. So I think one of the things I've really learned about press is working out what you want to get out of it. And therefore that kind of really feeds into the next point, which is like, is something the right thing for us? I think, you know, you hear all the time that like all publicity is good publicity, and I definitely don't think that's true. And I think it's thinking about, like we spend quite a lot of time looking at the platform, looking at the opportunity and working out if it's something we want to do or not.
So when you say looking at the platform, just talk me through. You get an approach, or you say, actually, you know, we want to put on a whole bunch of climbing courses for people in larger bodies. What's the step-by-step that you're working out?
So most of our stuff's been incoming. We haven't actually done much proactive reaching out to the press. So like if we get approached by, I don't know, say BBC Radio Scotland, it's like working out what show that is, who's the presenter. We might look at other similar pieces to get a sense of that. It's like, how long is it? You know, are we being featured on like a 45-minute piece where we really get to talk about what we're doing, or is this like a 2-minute segment? What format is it? Is it a conversation? Is there any kind of phone in? Is it like any kind of oppositional voice? Is it a topical piece that they're looking often? Topical pieces are often looking for a little bit of controversy on. So, for example, for us, we stay away from anything that's like health related. If it's like, oh, a new report about obesity has just come out, we should get some like plus size people in the outdoors to talk about that. That's a hard no from us. That's not what we do, and so we just politely decline.
Right.
But yeah, I think
when you're doing that polite declining, do you explain why? Do you offer a why, or do you say no thanks?
We have. I think I've only like politely declined once, and I did explain that it's just like actually like for us like the topic of weight loss and stuff is not something we want. You know that is something we talk about within our community, or is the point behind our work.
Okay.
You know, please do get in touch again if there's a different angle that you'd like to take on this. So, you know, do it very nicely. But I think it's realizing that there's a really big difference, for example, between being on Radio 4 and being on GB News, for example. And that's not to say that you shouldn't take those opportunities, but it's about considering that, and it's considering the angle that might be taken or the approach that might be taken. I also, where possible, tried to speak to the journalist in question in advance. So we had a BBC Radio Yorkshire piece, and they wanted to go for a walk with one of our volunteers. So I had a conversation with the journalist in advance, in which I basically set boundary. I was like, well, these are the things we don't talk about. This is not the angle of it. I mean, thankfully, he'd done quite a lot of research and had quite good questions for me. But I wanted to sound him out before I sent him off with one of our volunteers. And then I did a briefing call with a volunteer, and then I sent her a written briefing, which included like how to navigate things if difficult questions did come up.
Okay, great. And we've got a copy. You sent me very kindly a copy of that briefing, so I can share some of the information, the kind of headings, with the folk on this call as well, which will be great. What are the kind of top points when you're talking to a volunteer? If you say, actually, we're going to have someone from the press, we're going to have a photographer coming along, or a journalist, what kind of questions are members of the community asking, or what kind of concerns do they have that you need to address and support?
There's definitely about how to deal with difficult questions, giving them approach to deal with that, even if it's just like it's totally fine to say, actually, that's not something I want to talk about, perhaps we could talk about this instead, and like that kind of redirection angle to it. I try to give them key points that we want to get across, and I do that with any press opportunity. Is like, even if it's like a radio piece, I'll have a list in front of me of like, these are the things that I want to talk about. And sometimes it's about like diverting questions slightly to cover the things that you want to talk about, just so that they're kind of prepped. Any nuances of language that you want them to be specific about. So, for example, in the plus size community, some people use the word fat. Like I use it individually, but we never use it as a community. So it's just advising volunteers about this is our kind of organizational policy on that. But yeah, I think it's interesting because I think often press leads to press as well. So we did a piece on BBC Radio Yorkshire that didn't get much traction, but then that got picked up by a written piece on the BBC website, which ended up on the front page of the BBC website, which nearly led to TV coverage. It's people, and journalists are not always particularly original. Often they kind of read what else is out there, and so you'll find that somebody from like, I don't know, ITV TV has read something on the BBC News website, and things kind of get picked up that way. So while something might seem like a small piece of work, of coverage, it can lead to something bigger.
And so for people who are not necessarily, I mean, it would be great to say, actually, we'd love to do a 10-minute film for the one show or our own TV series or whatever, but that might not happen, fine.
Yeah.
How do you get those first little bits so that you do have a presence online that is beyond just your socials or your kind of mailing list?
I mean, local media is your friend, especially if you're like got some regional activity. They're often looking for stories. So approaching like your local radio station, your local newspaper is a really good way to do that. Like pitching yourself to podcasts. So that plus size inclusion, like the body and positivity podcast, like I did actually get in touch with them. I saw they were looking for speakers for the next thing, and so I sent them an email. And I think, so it's about putting yourself out there, finding where you'd like to be featured, and realizing you're probably not going to get into the Guardian at your first pitch, but yeah, trying to find those steps up. I think the other thing I'd say is thinking about whether also you have the capacity to do it. Like press is time, it's work. It's often sometimes it happens really quickly and suddenly it requires quite a lot of time putting into something. But it's also the other side of it. It's like when that coverage comes out, do you have time to deal with that? And that can be dealing with the wonderful positive things that come from that. But unfortunately, for a lot of our communities, that can also involve dealing with the negative side that might come. It might come from making sure that you've got people to manage your social media and delete any problematic comments, that kind of thing. And so I think that's the other reason I would turn something down. Like, so for example, I'm about to go on holiday. I'm not about to do any press right now because, like, I don't want to land that on, at a time when I'm not around to deal with anything.
Got you. What is your policy for both dealing with any potential harmful fallout, but also do you talk to the press outlet, the journalists, the media in advance so that they are primed to do their bit in terms of managing harmful content or comments?
I mean, our policy is we delete anything we don't want. We wouldn't want someone in our comments, like, community to see. It's like I don't feel like I have the right to, like, I don't feel like people have the right to say whatever they want on our social media channels. I'm not a, we are a community organisation, so if in doubt, delete or hide. I have tried having conversations with press outlets with not much success. So, for example, we were in The Guardian, and on the Guardian Facebook page, there was probably like 1,000 comments, and about 800 of them are mocking us, laughing at us, negative comments. And it's like, but I found that press would generally don't moderate social media comments, and maybe they would do. I mean, the problem with being plus size is it's not a protected characteristic, so people can say whatever they want about large or fat people. It's not, yeah. So you can't. I think they find that quite difficult to manage. I don't know if it's true with other community groups, but that's been my experience. Is that you just have to let go of that sometimes if it's not on your channel,
Right.
which is really difficult. And our general advice to our community is just not engage at all. Just ignore it. Like, don't read the comments. Yeah. I try to have that, and some people, actually a few people, like some smaller things have been, like, platforms have been more supportive of that, and actually I found The Guardian's the only time that's happened to us.
Right, okay. We're going to include some tips as well of ways to manage that and to kind of change the balance of positive and potentially negative or deeply negative. That's great. Thank you, Steph. One final thought. If people who are on the call are thinking, I would love to get a bit of publicity for my community, but people might be vulnerable, or we don't want to put ourselves in the firing line and just end up with a bunch of stories or messages or, going viral and getting shared and it being a really scary and not good thing. I mean, is that legitimate, or do you think actually the majority of times press is going to lead to something good?
I mean, I think the majority of times press is going to lead to something good. It's about thinking about the publication and the scale of it. Like, for example, most local press, like, we've never had any issues with. I think be able to have that conversation, I think some journalists are really open to it as well, and to having a conversation about how to protect people and how to navigate any of that stuff. Like, I have found that, I think until you've had that conversation and got a sense of that, it's just worth noting that it is a risk, and it's something to kind of have at the back of your mind, but it's not a reason, like, not to do things. I think it's when things get into the big national press that you sometimes face a bit more of that side of things.
Okay, great. And a final top tip for people who want to really master the press game.
I think, like, for me, preparation. It's thinking through what you want to talk about, talking to the journalist in advance, especially if it's something live, like a piece of live radio, like having that conversation and being like, what do you want to cover? What kind of questions might you ask? And then I write myself notes about what I want to get across. and not being afraid to divert questions. And that doesn't necessarily mean difficult questions, but if somebody asks you a question, you're like, oh, but actually, I really want to be able to talk about this thing. Like, oh, it's, that's a really interesting point. Actually, I think, and then like leading on to something else, like you can do quite a lot with that.
Yeah, the best piece of advice I was given was the question is a prompt. You speak now, and you can say whatever you like.
Yeah.
You don't need to answer the question. You just need to talk now.
Yeah.
All right, brilliant. Thank you so much, Steph. Where
problem.
do we find you on your socials?
We are at every_body_outdoors on Instagram, and Everybody Outdoors UK, I think, on Facebook, or everybodyoutdoors.co.uk is our website.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time.